Hey everyone, welcome to the My Nights Are Booked podcast. I'm your host, Sarabeth Pollock, and we are back with a whole new season full of episodes that are sure to capture your attention and your imagination. And I'm so excited today to have one of my very dear friends. He's an amazing actor, he's an amazing athlete, and now he's an amazing author. It's my friend Adoni Maropis. Now, he might look a little familiar to you. That's because he has been in such things as 24 and Hidalgo, and he's been in so many things that you're going to look at him and you're going to say, I know who he is. And yes, but now he's an author and he's written a book called Taming the Lion. And he's here today to talk to me about his book. Adoni, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Sarabeth. Now, before we start, I'm very relaxed. As you can see, I'm wearing a tank top, I'm wearing shorts. I'm not wearing sandals or anything. I'm just relaxed in my home. And I want to say to your viewers that you and I are beyond close friends. We are connected in a way spiritually and whatever, and you have been my rock the past year. I honestly don't know where I would be without you. I have to say that. I might shed a tear, I might get emotional. I'm being honest. And this novel would not have been made without you. You
Oh,
inspired me to write it because of you and your help with it. There's no way I could have done it. So it's an amazing journey. It's an amazing labor of love to write. I've written screenplays. This was an incredible experience for me, and I thank you for getting me started on it and continuing to be that amazing person in my life who has watched me along the way. So thanks. Oh, that was hard to say.
oh. Oh, that's you're so sweet. Yeah, we've to anyone who's curious, we've known each other for a couple of years now, and you had a story you wanted to tell, and it was just kind of a matter of how do you tell that story. And you'd never written a novel before, like you said. You actually mentioned that you've written screenplays before, including an amazing one with your father, which is incredible. But writing a book is a lot different than writing anything. This is it's a journey to go on a book, to write a book and to bring a story to life. So it's been an absolute pleasure watching you kind of discover your voice as an author and figure out the journey. So it's been fun just from a spectator's point of view, watching it all come together. So I'm really glad that we get to talk to everybody today and and share what this book is about, but more than anything, have you be the one to share it because it's such a personal story for you. And again, every author has a connection to their story. So this is yours. Um, so the full title, just it's Taming the Lion: Alexi's Extraordinary Sexual Journey to Spirituality. I wonder, before we get started, or just as a way of getting started, I would love to hear you talk a little bit about what the story is about so that the listeners and viewers can kind of be on the same page with us. So tell me about this story.
Okay, first of all, thank you for what you said before. I was kind of stuck there and I didn't say thank you. So thank you for all that you said about me and all that. All your viewers already left. Like, he didn't say thank you anyway. Um, it is what the title is. It says it's Taming the Lion, Alexi's Extraordinary Sexual Journey to Spirituality. Now, um, when I start telling you about my journey in life, this is where it all came to be, where I was sharing these stories with you. And you mentioned, wow, you have to do something with this. You have to put it somewhere, whatever. And I decided to put it in a novel because in a novel, you can hide. You can hide in a novel. So someone can say that I did that or what else. Oh, that's a novel. So, I can hide a little bit. Uh, a lot of the writing in this book is true. It is. I'm not going to tell you how much. You can figure out what is, what isn't. It's a novel, okay? But there are two stories in here that are verbatim the way they happened, if that's the correct term. Uh, I discovered spirituality through sexuality for whatever reason. It's meant to be, I don't know, but it came through sexuality. It came through experiences that I had with sex and, whatever, not necessarily intercourse, but sexual encounters. And so these events were so extraordinary and they involved me surviving and being a type 1 diabetic. Uh, that enhanced my experience because sugar is going low, in bad trouble, things like that. And I had to survive somehow. And some entity, otherworldly, whatever you call it, spiritual, saved the day for me twice. And the interesting thing is that that's happened at least 3 times in my life. The other time was on a movie set when it appeared I was in trouble and some otherworldly entity saved me there too. And the director and the producers and all the people on the set were like, how'd you get out of that bondage we had you in? Things like that. I was like, I don't know, but eventually I told him, just don't do what you were doing. And anyway, it goes from there, but my life has been saved. I probably gave too much away there, but that's it's a journey of someone who didn't know anything about sex and thought it was horrible, thought it was satanical, thought it was all these things. And eventually it leads to this spiritual nature when, well, at the age of 17 is when the character Alexi uh, has his virginity uh, taken away, broken, whatever you call it. And yeah, he starts experiencing sex in amazing ways and starts experiencing eventually these spiritual things along his journey in life.
So let's talk a little bit about the characters in the story, because as you mentioned, Alexi is he's the main character. Um, shares some similar characteristics. Type 1 diabetic. He's an actor. Like, there are a couple of similarities there, and a couple of things that are different. Um, who else do we meet in the book?
We have Sweetie Pie, um, whose name is Maryanne, and she's someone special um, to Alexi. Um, yeah, as he's grown, he's uh, the the book is told um, from Alexi to Maryanne in a 12-hour period. He tells her these amazing stories and how he got to be where he is now with her.
Mm.
So Maryanne is a very special person to him, and it involves uh, sort of the fetish world of domination and submission. He is her daddy, and he calls her Sweetie Pie. So they have a great connection. They're still sort of new, and she's learning about him, and he expresses his journey, which is really shocking to her, surprising, yet she can't get enough and wants to learn more and more and more. So 12 hours of him telling stories to her. And yeah, that's what it's about basically.
Kind of like 1001 Arabian Nights, a little bit. Just these story after story after story.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I never read the book, so I know about it. I know it is a movie, right?
And yeah, and I mean, basically, it's just this, just an incredible sharing of stories. I mean, obviously, 1001 Arabian Nights is a little bit different, different motivation, but um, one of the things I love about this dynamic between Alexi and Maryanne is that they learn so much about each other in this sharing of stories. That Alexi definitely wants to, you can tell there's this drive to not only share his story, but share it with someone who's going to appreciate it in a way that means that, it goes beyond just telling someone
Well, let me
something.
take it. He's hoping that she will accept him, even though his past is much different than what she knows him as now. It's um, like me, for instance. I'm an actor known for these characters that are dark, evil, strong, powerful, dominant, um, you know, uh, sexual, swarthy, and yet, really, in real life, when people meet me, they're like, "You're the sweetest guy," things like that. "Oh, you have such a beautiful smile," "Man, you're funny. You're really funny." When I did 24, I remember the producer came up to me and he said, uh, "Adoni, I just wanted to come up and meet you." And I turned to him and he's looking at me terrified. I said, "Oh, nice to meet you." So, thank God you smiled because I was afraid to come up by the way you play the character on TV. And that happens to me in real life too with women. And then when they discover that I'm not that, you know, real sexual swarthy, whatever, even though I'm wearing a tank top now and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes they get disappointed. They want that guy. They want that scary guy, that whatever. And I'm not that guy. I'm all about love and light, I want to make you know, bring happiness and joy and I want us all to sing Kumbaya, stuff like that. It's like anyway, yeah. So
So, I mean, that brings me to my next question. The idea of combining, wanting to talk about a journey towards spirituality, but using sexuality as the kind of motivating or driving factor. It's an interesting concept because a lot of people wouldn't connect those two things. But one of the things that you note on the back of your book is that, sex and spirituality go together like peanut butter and chocolate. And I wonder if you could kind of elaborate on that and talk about how, about those connections and how they come together in the book.
yeah, that's interesting because we, for whatever reason, sex is always looked at as bad, nasty, dirty. Those words are connected with sex, and it's wrong, wrong. Sex is not sex. I'm a sex positive person. I believe everybody should enjoy sex however they want in life. We should not care that someone likes to wear a dress or wants to do this or uh, domination, submission, fetishes, all that. Who cares? Enjoy your body for whatever reason. The powers that be, God has given us this Pandora's box of passions that, for whatever reason, we have those. And it's okay to explore those. As long as we know that uh, to me, as long as you're a good person, as long as you're not out to hurt somebody, truly hurt somebody, it's okay to have those. And, for a long time in my life, I had to repress, I had to like hide in the closet for the passions that I have, which, people will discover some of those in the book, of course, because it's obvious. But you know, just to bring it out. And I'd bring things out to potential girlfriends, and they would look at me and be all turned on about it. But then they'd say, "Well, I can't do that. I'm Catholic." I go, "But it's okay. It's we're already doing this in this way. How about we try it this way?" Things like that, like really simple, like odd things that would terrify them. Like, no, that's against my religious beliefs, and I disagree with that. I really do, and I was sick of hiding in that like closet. And I said, let me come out and share a bit about um, things I've experienced and things like that. So, you have to have the right person to accept that. You kind of test the waters. And the past girlfriends I had can take a little bit of it and they accepted it and they loved my honesty. So to me, I'm all about honesty, as you know, and that's so important to me, not to hide, not to hold this stuff and be fake and all that actually goes along with religion. People profess to be this and you know they do all these things that are really bad. you know so I don't like that.
Something you said earlier about Alexi's journey and like how he gets to this point. And you talked about how, he even viewed sex as this, I think you used the word satanic thing. And like, and so what I found fascinating, as you were writing this book and as you wrote it, as it comes out in the story, um, there's a point where that changes. And what's interesting to me is that, and people who have listened to the podcast and who know me, they've, you know, I've read a lot of books. I've read a lot of books about a lot of different things, and especially we'll use the romance genre, but there's all kinds of popular fiction and contemporary fiction where it's always the story is usually told from the woman's perspective about and it could have like the woman's first time or the first her first experience with somebody. And so that's something I've read over and over again, and obviously as a woman I have certain experiences myself, but I've never really been able to see a genuine depiction of kind of what goes through a guy's head. And what's fascinating about Alexi is that it's not what you would expect. And where he starts out and where he ends up at the age of 17 and what that does for him is fascinating. That in the way you tell it is so refreshing, but also just unique, because I don't think a lot of people really have an opportunity to get into somebody's head the way you write this character.
Well, thanks. I think that's a thanks. I appreciate it. I'll take it. Um, yeah, it wasn't that difficult to write. Actually, I think there's a lot of humor in this too, that it's hilarious how, Alexi sees a condom and he's saying, "Oh my God, that person who has a condom in their wallet is Satan." That's he felt, that's how I felt when I I experienced that. So yes, I did experience that. Um, yeah, it's amazing. Um, the journey. And it's still there though. It's still you still have these feelings you have to overcome every time to open up, to let go, to say that it's okay. Um, you know, um, it's amazing. Uh, yeah, it truly is amazing. And there's a part in that book where I talk about a psychic who comes to Alexi's home, and the spirit guides show her, through a mirror, the things that Alexi has done, sexually or naked or whatever. And this psychic's face turns beet red. And he's saying, "What's going on?" And she says, "Oh, nothing." And then eventually he gets her to open up as her face calms down. And he says, "What was that all about?" And she says, "Well, the the guides, they show me images of you." And I said, "I was I naked?" And she goes, "Yes, yes." I said, and it makes me want to run out and call the police or start screaming and yelling, "Help!" And she says, "But then they show me your heart and soul, and that's what keeps me there." And she said, "They do this to me all the time." So to me, that's powerful. It's like, you know, it doesn't matter what your kinks are. It doesn't matter that you like this, that. So many people hide and they have all these passions. And I've had, um, and me and that psychic were friends for years. We'd talk on the phone every day. It was amazing. But anyway, I've had friends contact me because they'll say, "Oh, Donnie, you're so open-minded, you're so sweet and nice, and I have these problems sexually, and I really want to try this, I want to try that." And I'll say, "Talk to your wife, talk to your husband, to whoever," and they would be afraid and say, "No, no, they would never accept me for that." I said, "Is she your best friend?" "Yes." You know, "Okay, you love her?" "Yes, yes." "She loves you, right?" "Yes, yes." "You talk about everything, right?" "Yes, yeah." "Well, why can't you talk about sex? Why can't you talk about whatever it is? She'll still love you." "Oh, I can't eat. She sees me this way. She sees me that way." In one instance I had where a great friend of mine called me up and talked to me about that. Said, I'd like to do this. I saw it on HBO, and my wife, I don't think will be able to handle it. And I said, just talk to her, just communicate with her. And we went through the whole thing. And then I swear to God, like a week later, she called me up and she said the same thing. She goes, you're so easy to talk to, Adoni, and you're so open-minded. And, I just want to ask you something. That she said the same thing. I want to try something with this person. And I was like, oh my God. I said, trust me, it's okay. Everything's going to be okay. Just sit down, talk with him. He loves you. I guarantee you, he will be okay with what you ask. And he might have something to ask you. So that was it. I never heard from them again. So I'm hoping it all worked out. But it's things like that people go through their lives. And instead of maybe talking to their loved one, they, cheat, or they go over here and get that kink out of the way. Um, it kind of reminds me of Robert De Niro in that movie with Billy Crystal, and he's being interviewed, and he says, Billy Crystal says, "Why don't you get a? Can I say this on air?
Yeah, yeah. Say whatever you want.
Um, why don't you get a blowjob from your wife?" He's wife, my wife, the mother of my kids, and all this sort of thing. And Billy Crystal's like, "Oh," it's like that sort of thing, and it bothers me. To me, I think we should be able to be opening up, the freedom to let go. And that's
Hmm.
why, to me, it's tear away, tear away. And that's why I'm wearing a tank top. And that's why, partly because, I'm also a type 1 diabetic, and I got a gadget on my arm to measure my sugars, and giving shots and all that. It's so much easier. So ever since COVID, I'm more free than I ever was. And I'm saying, heck with it. Someone doesn't like my look, close your eyes, turn the podcast off. Anyway.
I love that. I love that. What you know, what was your experience writing this book? And it like I said earlier, this was the first thing you've ever written in this form. So you've written screenplays. You're an actor, so you're familiar with reading scripts. What was it like as you were planning this out and coming up with this idea? Was it, I mean, I know the answer to this, but I just want to hear you talk about it a little bit because it was such
I
a
don't know.
fascinating journey.
I don't know
But
the answer. If you know the answer, why don't you say? I just know it was an amazing journey, a journey of it's a labor of love, like writing always is for me. It's incredible to let go and to have this like spirit through, and be on this computer before you, and like, wow, it's coming to life. Uh, yeah, it was. It's an amazing experience. And I forget what the experience. What was the experience like?
well, I think the thing that stands out is the fact that you had this desire that you wanted to write a story, and then you kind of started playing around with the story.
Oh,
It wasn't quite right.
I didn't plan it. It wasn't. Things come to me, so I didn't. I don't write like you do. I don't take note, or I just write notes on napkins, whatever. I'm like, oh, things like come to my mind, and I hold them in my mind. So uh, things just came to me along the way, and I was changing and adjusting and whatever, and then it just kind of came together. And I remember telling you, what if I do this and that kind of thing? And you're like, oh, that's a great idea. So it just came to me, how am I going to tell this story? And yeah, the story of to me, the important part of this is not, some people will read this, Sarabeth, and say, oh, this is smut. There's so much sex in this book. To me, I don't know, maybe there's sex in all kind of books that I haven't read. But my favorite books don't have a lot of sex in it. This has a lot of sex and sexual sexual nature. So, people might toss it away. I don't know, but I hope they can hang in there, because it's really to me, a spiritual book, and it's showing a journey. It's like anything, uh, if you want to show peace, then you kind of have to show war. It's the you know like all that, you have to show that journey to get to peace. And this is the same thing. You have to show the journey to spirituality. And spirituality is the number one thing for me in my life right now. And so, you know, sex without that involved in any way, it doesn't make sense. Everything's spiritual to me, everything. So, And writing has always been like that. Writing, the experience of writing to me is a spiritual thing. So I don't really, it just comes to me like, sharing the stories with you. My journey uh, was very spiritual because it's like you take something that is you consider negative or dark. When you bring it out, it's out in the light, and then it becomes light. So, and that's and forgive me my scar. I fell the other day, so people are probably seeing this. And, anyway, so it becomes light. That's how I see things. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know that you have one particular author that you thank in the book, who inspired you also. Do you want to mention his influence on you?
Yeah, his name is I.J. Weinstock. Um, yeah, to me, uh, he inspired me to write my story in a sense. I don't want to say too much about his books, but he wrote The Secret Sex Life of Angels was a big part of me writing my story. So it was you and I.J. Weinstock got me to write this story. Um, so yeah, yeah, the experiences he talks about, whether they were real or not, I understood them and I experienced them in my own way, in a spiritual way that is pretty incredible. So I thought, let me write, my story in a novel form, and so that I can, you know, make a difference, maybe, hopefully, in someone's life and people's lives. That, you know, I noticed when I was younger, being the athlete that I am, the actor, when I would say things to people, because I've had people tell me, "Oh, I have a man crush on you," even though they were like a good friend of mine. I guess because of being an athlete and the fact that I overcome, being a diabetic every day, getting many shots every day, and just hopefully the way I am. But when I can share something with them that is a little bit different, they would never say to me, "Oh, you're this," or no. They would look, listen, and say, "Oh, interesting." But then they would share something with me. So that's what I want to be. I want to elevate. We all have it in us, and I just want to allow people to elevate. And I want to say something else. There was a book that I read years ago called Exit to Eden. And Exit to Eden starred Rosie O'Donnell, I think it was, and other people, but it also had women that I knew uh, in the book that I had met along my journey in life, which was pretty cool. But this book, written by Anne Rice, I'm not sure she used a pseudonym when I read it. I'm not sure she had her name on it at the time. Uh, it's such a passionate book, but it involves the kink, the fetish, the domination and submission dynamic. And it's about this guy who goes to this island and meets the queen of the island, the dominant one, the dominatrix or whatever, and they fall in love. And it's a powerful story. It's very kinky. It's very sexual, and it's got all these things that I would never do, and I'm sure other people might not. But it's a passionate story, and the movie they made it out to be more farcical. They laughed at things. And that bothered me so much because here I am in the midst of my passion, enjoying these things. And now I'm like, I got to hide deeper in this closet. I got to find a
Mhm.
space deeper in the closet now because they're making fun of it. And that really bothered me. And I've always said to myself, I want to be on the other side of it. I want to be that person who elevates this passion and says, it's okay, that everything's okay, that you can let go and be with someone who loves you and experience these things. You don't have to go full on whatever here or there. You don't have to go to the extremes of anything. As my mother and father and grandfather always said, everything in moderation. So, you know, somewhere in the moderation, but just be a good person,
Mhm.
people well. Just that's all. So that's what I hope this book does. But yeah, there's a lot of sex and fascinating, incredible journey, I think. But ultimately, it leads to spirituality. That's the important part for me.
That's definitely one of the things that I love about it is that it is such a, you know, for all of the for all of the sex and for all of the scenes that, you know, depending on where you are in life, you know, it may be surprising, it may be shocking, it may be, you know, it could be any number of things. It could be tame for some people. It just depends on your experience. But what I love is that it's such a genuine depiction. And, you know, as you say, you know, the movie version of Exit to Eden is a comedy. It's considered a comedy when the book itself is far from it. And that to me, you know, that's what makes your book so special is that it is such a, it's heartfelt and it's not just you know, there are people, there are authors who write, you know, they love to write their erotica and you know, actual, you know, they self-proclaimed, you know, authors, you know, who write smut and they love that. And, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's something that I've always said, as, you know, anyone who's listened to the podcast knows, like, I will read anything and I'm not going to judge anything. I think it's important to tell those stories. But there are some authors who like to do that. Like, that's what they like to do. And then for some people, it's a vehicle to tell a story.
Yeah.
And in your case, it really is a vehicle to tell a story because you're going from one point to another. And these are all just stops along the way. You know, they're stops on this journey.
Now, let me add, you know, for instance, like someone who's a stripper. A lot of strippers put themselves through college, become whatever, but they have an opportunity because they were blessed with this physique, whatever it is that attracts men to give them money, and whatever it is, you know, you can bring that up to even prostitution. Okay, but I'm just saying, some people, that's all they can, you know, enjoy in their life
Mhm.
ever, you know. So why is it looked at as like, ooh, bad? Oh, you know, tank top is ooh, much, much. I'm gonna be showing a nipple here. Oh my God. God, none of us have ever seen a nipple before. Okay. The next one I'm gonna do naked. Next time.
The funny thing is that I know you well enough to know that this isn't like something that's, yeah, I'm thinking back to that time we went to Las Vegas and you were doing your little Chippendales
Yeah.
video. It's on his Instagram if you don't want to. Yeah, that's my voice and that's him, you know, in front of the Chippendale sign. So, but but that's, you know, that's I think it's so important because there's, you know, there's actually a bookstore that I've been meaning to take you to in LA. It's called the Ripped Bodice. And, you know, that's actually their whole
What's it
operating.
called?
It's called the Ripped Bodice.
The
And
rip.
it's a romance bookstore.
Yeah.
But their whole operating philosophy is that when people come in and they say, you know, what are you into?
Yeah.
They have no judgment. And
Yeah.
so if you say that, you know, I want to read a story about a woman who, you know, falls in love with a fish, you know, that impregnates her with this, you know, spiral shaped phallus that comes out, you know, when he's horny, you know, the fish man, they'll tell you where to go in the bookstore. There's no judgment there. And I think that's such an important thing because as you say, there's so much wrapped up in sexuality that it's hard to it's hard. I mean, we're finally living in a world where people don't have to feel like they have to cover their books, you know, and that's a huge thing, especially in the romance genre, where, you know, people used to feel embarrassed just reading a romance novel, you know, like they didn't want people to know, and so they would cover the, you know, cover the book. And now people are like, look at my collection, you know, look at my library shelf, like look at this. And so, and that's what I really love about this story again, because it's someone, you're going on a journey with someone who's figuring these things out. Alexi is very much trying to figure out what it is, where he wants to go. And then when he's telling this story later on to Maryanne, he's, you know, hoping that she's receptive and, you know, that she understands and, you know, that they can have this beautiful relationship based on, you know, him you know, basically exposing his past. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see.
Well, the added thing in this novel is how many novels do you read about a guy who's a type 1 diabetic He has to give multiple shots of insulin, check his blood sugars and things like that. And the fact that Alexi experiences what he did as a type 1 diabetic is pretty extraordinary. And the things that I've experienced in my life, pretty extraordinary for someone who wasn't supposed to live very long, someone who was supposed to be weak, thin, sick, in and out of hospitals, and you know, has thrived for all these years. So in a sense, overcoming it, and not only just surviving, but doing some extraordinary things, and so I think that hopefully adds to the story. Maybe it bogs it down. I didn't want to get deep into all the diabetic stuff. I do mention it a few times, but I didn't want it to be about that. Everybody has sort of their, you know, thing they have to overcome in life, whatever it is, uh, their burden. Being a diabetic is a little unique in that you have to survive every day. Every day you have to survive, and it's a challenge. So, to experience all these extraordinary things and survive it, and you know, have these experiences is pretty amazing. So, anyway. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything you'd like to say to everybody before we wrap things up? Anything that we haven't talked about? And I know there are men of few words and there are men of many words. And I think you fall into that latter category because you always have
Too many words.
interesting, not too many, you have many words.
Well, I'll try to simplify it then. Uh, I just want, I hope some people will have an interest in reading this, and I hope it makes a difference. And but I really just want, as my father puts it, peace and quiet. I would love to have peace and quiet in this world. And I wish, as always, my mantra, love, laughter, and fitness to all. And that's it. That's all I want.
I love that. And I can't wait for people to read the book. It's available now. It's available as an ebook, and it's also available on, you can order a printed copy on Amazon. And hopefully, we'll be seeing you out and about promoting the book in various places out and around LA. But, and you have a website. Do you want to mention your website where people can contact you?
Oh, geez. Can they contact me there? I forget. Can they? I
I
hope
think
so.
they can, or on your YouTube channel too. But they can definitely. You have a
I have a,
contact page.
yeah, I have a YouTube channel, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of silly and goofy, like um the website is adoni-maropis.com, right?
Hmm.
It's,
Well, I'm still trying to get you on social media in a different place, but that's what we're starting. So people who read the book, if you have any comments, you can reach him there, and hopefully soon we'll have more places for you to reach out to him on social media if you have comments. And obviously, you can leave messages here on the podcast, and I will relay them to him as well.
yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. That's good. Don't be afraid. I've been inspired by people who have been inspired by me in life too. So, share any inspirational story and all that. That would be great. But reach out, whoever.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the podcast with me, and I have a feeling this will be one of many podcasts that we do together. So
Thank you.
thank you, and thank you for doing it. I know it was we were trying to take the leap and do a podcast, and so we finally did it. This is our first one, so I'm really excited that we made the leap. And yeah, so I'm really excited. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and we will be bringing so many more episodes in the future. Got a lot coming up in the coming weeks and months, other episodes with other interviews and books and some stuff in my life. I've been writing. That's why I haven't been podcasting, because I've been writing. So that's exciting. So we have a lot of stuff coming up. So thank you so much for following along. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the podcast so that we can keep doing this. And I will sign off for now and say see you all soon. And thank you for following. And thank you, Adoni, for being here.
Thank you.